Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Nichole Show, where we dive deep behind the masks of human nature and the social reels and reams of what you do and don't see, and we get really vulnerable. Today's guest is a beautiful fellow coach, Ben Clarke, and also a brother. I have known him for a very long time and watched his journey, been inspired, been a part of his containers and retreats, and having somebody with a soul's purpose to also help men and women out there be the best versions of themselves is what I love to share so you guys don't feel so alone. So without further ado, please listen to along with some great ideas and inspiring insights with Ben Clarke.
Welcome aboard The Nichole Show with host Nichole Hamilton. Our task is to educate, empower, and change lives. Join us for stories of resilience and rebirth. Honest talks that inspire and challenge you. Are you ready to make a move? It begins now.
Welcome back, guys, to the Nichole Show for 2025. And God, I love this space. It feels like a coaching session for myself. Today, in the hot seat, we have a beautiful friend of mine, Ben Clarke. He's a fellow coach, mentor, friend. I've known him over 10 years and we've been in this space coaching and catching up for a really long time. And I love the fact that from this work, we've really, we get to connect at that deep soul level. And very interesting that I have another male in the 2025 seat. So let's dive into all the things, men's mental health, coaching, and get some cool stories out of you. So welcome, Ben.
Great to be here. It's been a while, but just even before, it's like we just picked up where we left off, really. But yeah, we've known each other for a while. We've journeyed and weaved together and gone on our own paths. But it's good to come back full circle and excited to be here today.
Thank you so much. Well, we love flowing on this show with intuition and deep soulful connection. So I would love to kind of drop into your intuition. And I don't want just a synopsis of Ben, because that's the story, right? We kind of get stuck in our bio. Let's not do the bio. I'd love to know what your heart wants to tell my listeners today. Like where does your heart want to go with this collaboration, this story?
Yeah. Actually, like before I jumped on here today, I did sort of sit with that. I'm like, what's the thing that I want to share today? What's alive in me? What have I noticed in other groups that I've been sharing in over the last little while? What's been a current theme that's been sort of popping up? And yeah, I think the theme that's been really ripe and something that I would love to share today is this concept of like seasons and cycles. And yeah, ultimately that there's always going to be these ebbs and flows of life, and how we can also navigate those different seasons with a sense of like, I guess, trust and grace that, yeah, maybe life isn't happening to us, but for us. And even in the most challenging times, often it's like this ability to see the gifts there and maybe we're being redirected. And, sometimes you're in those moments and it's like, oh, this is heavy, this is challenging. But even just having, I guess, that awareness that maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. Maybe this is actually a redirection piece opposed to something happening to you. It gives you sort of different eyes to what you can see and what you focus on. And I feel like even in the most challenging times, it's like knowing this too shall pass and it's happening for you. That seems to be something that's been coming up a lot in a lot of other groups that I've been in. And even myself personally, I feel like, over the last probably 12 months, it's been like this massive like death and rebirth journey. And it's actually been more beautiful than it's ever been. And I feel like throughout life, you're going to have several of these kind of like reinventing yourself moments or like this deconstruction of like this person that you thought you were. And I feel like, you've known me for over 10 years. You've probably seen some of those journeys yourself.
I definitely have.
From PT to, I guess just the man I am today. And I feel like even this new chapter I'm about to move into of fatherhood as well, that itself is kind of like a death and a rebirth in a beautiful way. It's like letting go of this
100%.
old identity and stepping into this new identity with open arms. And of course, there's going to be sometimes a little bit of resistance around that. but it's like realizing that it's inevitable. Like, change is the only constant really, but how can you kind of meet each season with a sense of like openness and grace in that? And I feel like it transforms those seasons. You're able to like navigate them differently, opposed to like going, oh, when is this going to end? It's like enjoying that season and knowing the next season is just around the corner also.
I hear and I feel like this gentle knowing, like this super trust in the changes and the things that are, being highlighted in your world. I would love to know, because I feel very similar at the moment. I feel like whatever's coming up, I can have awareness of and move through and with a lot more clarity. How did you realize that shift? Because we've all been in the, oh, fuck, this is awful. I hate it. I don't know what to do. The situation, and where we go into a total probably spiral or depression or whatever. We've all been, challenged or traumatized by something.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get that awareness, and that really, I can feel that that things are happening for you and guiding you and the rest. Explain to the listeners though, where does that come from?
I guess, anything that you believe is going to be a compound effect of experiences from the past where you have, I guess, seen the results of that at some capacity. And I guess like you could look at philosophy. There's like even Taoist quotes that talk about this. I mean, one of my favorites actually is like, when it comes to change, it's like you can either surrender to change or you can be dragged. It's going to happen like regardless, right? I guess there's that, there's those sort of teachings out there, but it's not until you kind of meet those challenging moments, I think. And then, you come out the other side. And, yourself and anyone listening today, like if you really reflect on your life, everyone's had these moments where their back's been against the wall and they're like, how am I going to find the way through this? This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. How am I going to find my way through? But like, if you're listening now, if you're sitting here now, if you're on this podcast right now, you've only ever found the way. When you think about it, you've only ever found the way. So really the fear of anything that may or may not happen in the future is really like a fear in our own capacity to be able to navigate that. And the only evidence you actually have is that you always have been able to navigate it. So therefore, the only evidence is that you probably always will. But, the more resourceful you can become in those moments, the more you can ironically become more still and surrender. In those moments, it's like you want to force things. You want or even, I want to have more control here because I feel like things are out of control. But the irony is like the more that you can almost laugh, and this is something that I'll do these days. I'll actually like go, this is like a bit of a cosmic joke, pause, what a pleasure. Why is this in my movie? Instead of going, oh, this is like, why is this happening right now? I go, pause. Yeah. What a pleasure. Like, what an opportunity. Why is this in my movie? And the only evidence I've ever got is that I've been able to find the way or make the way through this stuff. And I guess like if I look at my own journey, probably the time where I felt like it was the end. And without going into all the details, because I realized we have like a limited time here today as well. Through a whole heap of different events, I got to the point where I didn't know who I was, where I was going. I like lost a lot of my sense of self in my identity. I was pretty much having anxiety attacks and like basically up and down in terms of like one day depressed, one day super anxious. I literally would have an anxiety attack when the phone rang. And I was caught in my mind. And, really this was only like a bit over a decade ago. I think this was probably like only a few years before we first met, actually, like maybe 3-4 years before we first met. And I was ready to check out. I like the scenario I'd give is like the image I had in my mind was, do you remember those old 64s, like where you used to like have the 64 controllers, you had to put like the game in and you could just literally go boom, boom and turn it off and on and it would reboot again.
Yeah.
It was like, I just want to like restart. Like, I just feel trapped. I feel like I don't know how to navigate this world with the mind that I got. I felt like trapped in my mind. And one day, I was ready to like end it. And I literally just had this voice in my head that was just like, just give up. Like, just give up. You know what? Everyone would be better off if you just gave up. Like, you can't do this. You can't do this. Just give up. Just give up. Just give up. And probably that was like, even though it was the hardest day of my life, like in so many different ways, like honestly, if it wasn't for the love of my parents, I don't think I'd even be here. You know, like it was imagining their grief of me taking that path that was really stopping me from following through. But it was probably my first, I guess, spiritual experience, my first proper spiritual experience. It was like this little voice that kept saying, just give up, just give up. It turned into like this little voice of like, just step up, just step up. It's like you just need to step
Just
up.
step up.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this,
In that
it's
same
like,
day, in that same 24 hours, it flipped to step up, or when did it
yeah,
flick?
like I guess
When
a
does it? When
feeling came before like the thought, perhaps. Like it was like
Mm,
a feeling of hopelessness to just simply hope, a belief that like things could change. And for whatever reason in that moment, like I stepped into a space like within myself where I was like, at some level I've attracted or enabled all this. Like I can't blame anyone else for all the stuff anymore. Like I need to take control of this. And it actually was an empowering moment for me because I had this realization. And again, this is just like in this moment, this is what I thought. I don't have to like accept this
mm,
realization. Anyone listening. But in that moment, I was like, well, if this is what I've created with what I've got right now, like within my mindset, yeah, I could create something
mhm.
pretty beautiful if I thought differently, if I focused on things differently, if I had a different mindset in my inner world. But all I knew back then was essentially like science and psychology. So that's, you know, that's what I did that day. I enrolled in a post-grad psychology course and I looked at how can I change my inner world. I like rang up my mum and said, I need help. And she helped, you know, get me counseling, helped me get a psychologist appointment. And then I actually got online. I wasn't working at the time because I was such in a pity party. And yeah, I went and got a job. And yeah, things like turned around very quickly from that moment onwards. And so many other death rebirth journeys from that point. But if I was to look at like a pivotal moment in my life where literally at that moment, if you had have asked me like right now, is this how like is this the best day of your life or the worst day of your life? I absolutely would have told you this is like the worst day of my life. Like this is the end.
I really do thank you for sharing that story because it's super powerful, and you're the third male that shared a suicide journey, thought process and dark night of the soul, third or fourth actually. So I really believe that it's part of my mission this year to shed some light, and there are always links below for Lifeline for other coaches. You know, if we're not the right people, please do reach out. But that's a beautiful way that I've never heard you tell the story that way before, Ben. And I love the fact that the things that I got out of it is there was a mindset shift of like, just give up to just step up. Like just even just that one word made such a resonant change. Secondly, I heard that you asked for help, like you asked your mum for help. That is the biggest fucking thing that anybody can do. I know in my own processes of addiction and despair, the moment you actually have the capacity to go, I fucking need help, whether you type it, whether you ask for it, whether you tell your best friend, whoever, you unconsciously, something shifts. The universe has got your back. Like it literally does. God's got your back. As soon as you ask for help, things will shift and turn for you. And I always say it's like now I can't remember, but it's almost like when you draw a dot to dot and you don't know where it's going. Like if you've got, especially if you've got a crazy dot to dot, like you honestly have no idea what you're drawing, right? But when you look back, you're like, far out. Like how cool is that? Like I didn't know where the numbers were going. I didn't know where it was taking me. And that's what life is like. Like when you look back, like it could have been the worst moment at that time, but when you look back, you're like, oh my God, look at the beauty in that. Look at the reason that the universe directed me somewhere else. Look at the pivotal moment to go through that despair or that thing to get you to this. And I do love that reflection. Like we are all so capable. Like we've got nothing else to prove us otherwise. doesn't matter where you're at now, you've got to here, regardless of your circumstances and situations and what's happened. Like, you have literally got yourself to here. And that, again, is, we don't probably give ourselves enough credit for that, like drawing on that innate wisdom and survival that we have within all of us. So thank you for sharing that. It's super powerful. And I had a reading, and one of the, and I think that this is relevant to everybody, but she's like, your soul came down here to go through the challenges that you created to then teach and heal from that. Like, you could see everybody else struggling, so you will just like go through it. And so in my head, I was like, oh, I fucked this up, or I did this. Like, I had, a story attached to some of the adversities that I'd created. And she's like, no, like, you fucking did that to do this. And I think it's the same thing. Like, if you really know that every single soul has come on this life to go through the journey, by design, if you think, to then come through it, everybody has that capacity to then give back. And I originally created this podcast for the cheat codes. Like, how then? How did, for me, get over addiction, or how? So I would love to know, what is one of the most powerful or kind of biggest takeaways for you? You've done a lot of study in that 10 years that I've known you as well, over, and you've learned a lot of modalities, and you hold space for a lot of people in different realms. What is your absolute favorite thing to show somebody or take them through a process? What's your thing that that people should all experience? That is my question.
Hey everyone, Nichole here, and I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you all. If you're finding value in our conversations and loving the raw, honest dialogues we're having here, I've got a small favor to ask. This podcast is a passion project for me, and there's nothing I love more than bringing these stories and insights to you. So if you haven't already, would you consider subscribing to our show and leaving a review? It's completely free and it doesn't take much time, but it really helps us in two big ways. It's getting the podcast in front of more listeners, which keeps our community growing. It helps us attract more amazing guests, which means we give you more value in the episodes we bring to you. Just hit that subscribe button, drop us a review, and let's keep these conversations flowing. Now let's dive right back into our episode, and thanks so much for being a part of the Nichole's show.
All right, we're back. Apparently we dropped out there. We dropped out there for a minute, but we're back. That's the main thing. We are back. Yeah, and that's, I guess, from the philosophy, that's a deep, deep dive, really, like how deep that philosophy goes of yoga. And really it's about what you do and what you don't do that really creates a different reality for yourself, a different state. But also it's about the ability to withdraw the senses, the ability to actually block out all the noise, to go more inward and essentially seek the answers that, you don't have to look outside to find. They're actually all within you. It's bringing yourself back to a trust in your own innate wisdom that lives within you as well. It's like, if you actually can start to get in this deeper connection with your body, you know what your body needs in order to operate in terms of food wise at its optimum. You know what's best for you. You know what's like a hell yes and what's a hell no. There's like this intelligence, this innate intelligence that runs the body, and this innate intelligence that we can tap into. And in yoga, they even speak about this ability to go essentially beyond the mind, because the mind is just like reacting to everything via the senses. But it's like, how can we get to the point where we're actually in the intellect? And the intellect is not the mind. The mind is like basically, oh, I heard something, reacting to sound. Oh, I smell something, I see something, I taste something, touch something. It's like reacting in that way. Whereas the intellect essentially is like above the mind. It's like the observer of your thoughts. It's the observer of the internal world and the external world simultaneously. And often the intellect is known as like the buddhi or the Buddha, which means like above mind. And the ability to actually start observing your own thoughts, your own actions. And just as we were speaking about before, this is really where everything opens up. The ability, instead of to put the mirror and like project out everywhere else, it's, their fault, it's the economy's fault. It's like, oh, interesting that I'm getting activated by this, or like something's coming up around this, because where there is activation, there is something there to look at. Because if there's no activation, then it's a non-issue. Yeah. And it's like this level of curiosity. And then the ability to also create a little bit of separation between the mind and body, and breathwork can be a really great tool for that. And I guess when I say yoga, I feel like the reason why I feel yoga is good is because it like kind of gives you some teachings around how to master your mind, some abilities to not be a slave to the senses and just react to life, to be more responsive, to be more the observer of your internal, external world and respond more consciously. And then I feel like probably when we look at working with the breath, working with the ability to create also a little bit of separation between the mind and body, we look at this dharana, the ability to focus and direct the mind. This is how you can actually get shit done. This is how you can actually like manifest into the world. It's all very good and well to have a dream, but it's about how can I then focus and direct my energy, and where focus goes, energy flows, right?
Yeah.
To actually like then how do I bring this into actualization? And then beyond that is like, of course, knowing that you are more than just this mind, more than just this body, more than your identity. And I think like even just having a moment of that, and not like intellectualizing it, but an embodied experience that you are pure awareness.
Yeah, I got it too. Yeah.
That then suddenly like there's not this strong attachment to the body, to the mind, and therefore I feel like a fear of death leaves you that day too, because there's no clinging to this like life. It's like it's all just a journey, and it's all just here to be experienced. And like, yeah, really living is learning. But I would say probably at the moment, the thing that I love the most sharing with people, I know this has gone a long way round, but out of all of those limbs, I feel like what the world needs most at the moment is actually the somatic stuff, like working with the breath through the body.
Yeah. Right.
I feel like that's what the world needs right now. And there's going to be different cycles and different seasons. The world has definitely been like really refining the intellect, which has been, helped human species evolve for good and for bad. Sometimes for good, sometimes for bad. But this is life. It's like whatever you wield that knowledge and power towards, it will manifest in that direction. But yeah, I feel like the world actually need to come back into themselves. And yeah, I feel like the breath is, the reason we breathe is, it's so powerful. Yeah. And the reason we breathe is because like there is life force energy, not because we don't breathe to create life force energy. We are breathing because that life force energy is alive within you. And yeah, I'm preaching to the choir here with you.
I love it. I love how, I know that I'm drawn to Sanskrit. I know that I'm drawn to meditation. I know that I'm drawn to movement. I haven't really studied yoga myself, but I love that all comes into that one philosophy. So I see and feel that practice with the right teachers could just be absolutely so spiritual and so perfect for that body, mind, soul. Like that's what I feel like when you speak that.
Yeah.
When you come back to the breath, I'm like, oh my God, I had the most powerful breathwork experience with a different coach one-on-one the other week. But I personally still love like hypnotic language.
Yes.
Love.
Yeah.
And so this was a blend of the both. And I'm an energetic being too. So when the three are kind of like melded together and you have the touch and the breath and then the hypnotic language, like I'm like off the charts orgasmic, like just all the senses. And I love being, in like as a support, because you can feel and see where people are touching in those places and spaces. But 100% breath is a very easy, because it's not as confronting. I feel like people can go in and go, okay, I'm going to breathe and I'm going to feel something in my ear is going to shift. I can have that control and release, and it's a really powerful thing. And with what I'm seeing, just even in the youth and people, we're so dysregulated. We're not breathing properly anyway. We're not probably moving our bodies enough. And the breath and taking that control, it's such a release on the nervous system, even in conscious breathing, not even a full breath work experience, like conscious breathing and relaxing, which you get to do in yoga and meditation as well. It's so important. And yet it's fucking free.
Yeah.
And we don't know how powerful it is. Like coming into that is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I love that you touched on all of it. Again, guys, if you if you are following along our little off channels and rants, we are a wealth of knowledge. Like there's so much cool free content out there too, but just finding what's right for you. And I always say, keep asking, like keep trying. Like if you really hate breathwork, cool, go try yoga. If you really don't like that, go, there are heaps of modalities out there. I don't think I've found one I don't like, to be honest. Like I think when I've tried, like when you have a new coach and you're learning something new, you're like, oh, that's cool. It's a big game, like in this adult world of playing and unraveling and relearning more about ourselves. And that's what I find joy in. As scary as it is sometimes, I still get nervous when I rock up for a coaching call. I've been doing this a long time. But yeah, I find that learning from others and their experiences and what they've been through is super powerful.
Yeah, 100%. And you basically hit the nail on the head. I think just be open. I think like be open to all the different modalities out there. And yeah, different times of your journey, I feel like will call for different potential modalities, or like you might need a little bit more, work through the mind, and then maybe more unconsciously, maybe a bit more through the body somatically. Yeah, different times, different cycles, different seasons, kind of, starting off with what we started off at the very start of the call talking about, will call for different things.
Yeah.
But hypno is ironically like hypno again, like in yoga too. Like if you listen to a guided meditation in yoga, it's very hypnotic in nature, right? Yeah. It's interesting. It all kind of weaves together.
All the modalities actually do blend when you start getting a bit more of knowledge.
They do. They really do. It's true.
I just dropped in. I don't know why, but as you were talking, and about modalities and different ways of doing it, our beautiful friend Jocko, like we've learned so much. I'd love to know. So Jocko is a beautiful healer and a master in his own right over in Bali, and Bali is like a second home to you and I. And I thank you for introducing me to him, because he is a beautiful, powerful human being. I would love to know, Jocko, a beautiful friend of ours, like what have you learned most off of him? I find him so, like, he is literally the embodiment of all the modalities that we've just spoken of. Like he just walks the walk, talks the talk. And I found like I've learned so many cool little tricks off of him. And in a non-westernized culture, like it's really cool to watch how other people interact and learn and heal. And if anybody listening to this, you guys get to travel to Bali, go maybe on one of Ben's retreats, because he hosts a lot over there with the beautiful Jocko. They do these beautiful waterfall healings, and this man is just a magnificent energy. I'd love to know what you've learned from him, because I just find him somebody that you just want to go back and see again and again, and that healing, that process in another country, along with the water and the rituals. But yeah, I'd love for you to touch on that. I don't know why he dropped in, so I just followed my intuition. But yeah, you've been working with him for a long time.
We have been working together for a long time. Yeah, once someone helping me out with a retreat turned to a good friend, turned to a brother from another mother, and like pretty amazing. The journey that we've been on. I remember we first met where I was actually helping out at another retreat, and I was introduced to him then. And there was some stuff going down on that retreat where it needed a little bit of assistance, and we actually had to work together to like kind of bring it back again. It was like some of the guests were getting a little bit disgruntled at this other retreat because a few things weren't going to plan, and they were getting a little bit, I guess, agitated about that. And we had to kind of like almost like work together to like turn the retreat around. And I was just employed to like run the yoga there. And I ended up like running some workshops, some breathwork journeys. We ended up like working out a little itinerary where they could go do the water cleansing. And it was really cool. Like we didn't save the retreat, but like we certainly in that moment like bonded over this like little goal of like, all right, things aren't going too well with this retreat. We're just like employed to help out, but like let's work together and let's work with the hosts here and let's like make this really beautiful for everyone. And we really bonded over that. And I just run one retreat before that point, so this was like 9 years ago or something. But
was that your first retreat?
Oh yes, you were the one. Okay, first retreat in Bali, sorry. You were at my very first, though.
Very first.
And you know what they say, you never forget your first, so there you go.
Forever.
And yeah, we bonded over that, and then I said to him, "Hey, I've got some retreats coming up. I'd love to work together." And then I just started coming over to Bali, like just spending large chunks of time, and he sort of like introduced me into his world, and I got to like get to know him a bit more, and we just became really great friends. I got to go to his wedding recently, which was so beautiful. I remember like just seeing him with his new wife and just how happy they were together. Like it brought me to tears because I was just like, yeah, just like so much love for this man, and to see him in so much joy, just brought me so much joy. And yeah, he's got another young child on the way, which is really exciting with his new wife, and yeah, gonna hopefully meet her really really soon, which is exciting. But yeah, often when we have retreats, now knowing Jocko for such a long time, I often say to people this at the very beginning, and this amazing man, I want you to not just listen to what he says, but I want you to really start to be aware of what he does. Because it's not what he says that is the most important, but it is what he does and who he is. And if you observe that, you're going to learn so much. And so, what do I think is the biggest learnings that he's give to me? And I think this is just through an embodiment of who he is. It is his ability to not like be in this space of like complaining or getting frustrated when things don't go to plan. Never, right? You can back me up.
Never
He
flustered.
says, and I'm going to try to do my best Jocko
Okay.
impersonation. Ready? Okay. Don't worry. He goes, don't worry. All good. Don't worry. Like it is like it's always all good. And he'll go, don't worry. Be happy. And
Yeah.
even though that might seem a little cheeky, a little laughable, there's actually so much embodiment in that because he's not just saying it in a way where he doesn't mean it. He literally, you can see when things don't go to plan, when someone does something even to him that you'd say like that's pretty unfair. He's still like, I only give them love, and I see that in him again and again. Like he actually shows me how to be a man who's really embodied in that like lover archetype, the wizard archetype, that magician, like the ability to have one foot in kind of like this spiritual realm, one foot in like this realm. He's able to like ultimately find a solution to anything, it seems, because that's what he focuses on, solutions, not problems.
He does.
And
He channels and his gift and his energy. And like you said, it's not even what he says, it's what he does. It's how he
what he
behaves.
does.
Grabs your hand if you're
Yep.
knows when you're having a wobble and you can just feel him. Or his energy exchange and his changing of his breathing. And yeah, I don't know why it dropped in, but I really do highly recommend going to one of Ben's retreats and meeting Jocko and going over there. Bali, if you guys have the funds of it listening to this, that is one of the most spiritual places you can go for a full transformation, body, mind, soul. And being in the power of other people that are really embodied that you want to learn from. Oh my God. Definitely got a huge chunk of my heart to go back and to be there more. And and I don't think I would have fallen in love with Bali as much if I hadn't met Jocko as well. Like he just, even for families and all those things, like I always recommend him. But he's
such a good man. And it's like, he always says to me, no complaining. He says to everyone, like, no complaining, no complaining. And really, like, it's really just stepping back into that gratitude. It's like, even your worst day, like when you really think about it, there are people in the world that would like kill to have your worst day.
Yeah.
It's like the truth of the matter is there is like so much abundance around us. Sometimes we get so caught up in looking at what's lacking when really there's actually so much abundance there. So yeah, he always reminds me of that too. It's like, what are you complaining about?
Yeah.
Life is beautiful if you have the eyes to see it. So he's an embodiment of that. There's no doubt.
Well, isn't that interesting that we come back to that, and really where we started was, having the ability to move through and surrender and knowing that life is happening for us. So having that kind of similar philosophy at the beginning and the end there.
So
right?
Powerful. Yeah.
It is. And hopefully that some of this stuff lands, some of it may not. But I'm going to put all your details at the bottom, Ben, because one of the best things that you was gifted to me was Jocko as well, like having that place to go to and heal, and I've had time and space over there, and I think it's a really powerful place for healing. And along with all the other things that we discussed today, I feel complete. I feel like we journeyed today.
Have we ever?
Is there anything else that you want to say? I know obviously you put all your socials and everything underneath, but anything else you'd like to let the listeners know before we sign off?
Yeah. Best way to find out what we do. I got a couple of different businesses. One is Empowered Academy, so empoweredacademy.com.au. You'll find all our retreats and all our courses that we got running there. So everything we spoke about, all those modalities today, they're all the things that I teach at Empowered Academy, myself and the team, as well as run full immersions where we bring in a lot of that philosophy that I was talking about as well, and that embodied experience. Get to meet Jocko if you get to go over to Bali as well. Another space that I'm super passionate about is another business that I'm also a part of. This is more a passion project, but it's been something that's been on my heart for a very long time. Obviously, I spoke about my journey as a young man, and ultimately, if it wasn't for having supportive people around me, I definitely didn't have the tools that I have now. But if it wasn't for the supportive people around me, I probably wouldn't be here. And as you've sort of spoken into, Nichole, as well, like for a lot of young men, and just men in general, not young men, but men in general, unfortunately, all ages, it doesn't discriminate. There's a lot of men that, haven't, I guess, created those networks around them, or feel that it's weak to speak, and suppress a lot of emotions and so forth. And because it's like generational, I guess, conditioning, and that this is what a strong man is. It doesn't show emotions and all of that, which obviously has created, unfortunately, a statistic where, unfortunately, a lot of men who can't see the way through choose the way out. And so a really beautiful space that I've been able to also be part of for the last 5 years with a lot of great friends of mine, and another great my partner in this business, and Lee Barrett. We run Brazen Brotherhood. So if you know a man, if you are a man and you want to come into a safe space where it's not weak to speak, and you can be bold and shameless and free in your expression, and just be around other like-minded men. We get out and we hike, and we sit around campfires, and nothing's off the table. It's a space where you can be raw, be real, and be held by other men. It's a transformational space for men. And it was really all born out of actually a moment where a really beautiful young man that I was really close with, unfortunately took his life. And it really, it like tormented me, because it was like these questions of like, could I have said something different? Could I have done something different? And at the time, and really, like, I realized that, you don't really know what's going on in that person's inner world at the time, but you never would have picked it either. It's like one of those things, you never would have picked it. And it tormented me for such a long time, because I thought, like, there's nothing good in this. Like, how can I find the good in this? I was struggling to find the good in it. And I'll finish on this, because this is probably one of the most powerful things that anyone has ever said to me. And I feel like, in closing, I'd like to share it in this space. I went to one of my teachers, yoga teachers, and I said, look, this has been tormenting me. I can't see how this event in the past has any good associated to it. I can't reframe it. I can't put a positive spin on it. This is horrible of what's happened here. He had everything going for him, and now he's gone. He said, Ben, can you change the past? I'm like, I can't. I can't change the past. I can't. I wish I could. He's like, well, what can you focus on? What can you control? I'm like, the future, that's pretty much it, this present moment. And he's like, so how can you take something seemingly tragic with no good, and how can you turn it into something so beautiful? How can you make this man's death become a legacy so that other men maybe don't have to go through the same? So, Brazen Brotherhood. So it's very important to me. And there's a lot of other men out there holding beautiful spaces now, and thank you, Nichole, also for holding space for men to speak in this platform too, because obviously if this is going out to more men to know that it's not weak to speak, that the most courageous thing you can do is ask for help, as we spoke about